Calling all future animal health professionals. Ready to make a difference? Welcome to the University of Calgary's Faculty of Veterinary Medicine, UCVM, a community where animal, human, and environmental health thrive together. Here, we believe that veterinary medicine is more than a profession. It's a shared commitment to a healthier, more sustainable world. The brand new Veterinary Learning Commons at our Spy Hill campus stands at the heart of this commitment. This state-of-the-art facility allows us to double our Doctor of Veterinary Medicine enrollment, training 100 students each year with access to world-class diagnostic, teaching, and research laboratories. Our community care clinic connects UCVM's mission directly to the people and animals who need it most. Here, our students, staff, and faculty provide basic veterinary care to communities facing barriers to access, because we believe every animal deserves medical attention and every student deserves the opportunity to make an impact. Graduate students are a driving force in UCVM's mission. Whether pursuing a master's or PhD in veterinary medical sciences, UCVM graduate programs prepare the next generation of scientists and scholars to tackle the most complex challenges facing our world. Just 25 minutes north of campus, WA Ranches, a 19,000-acre working cattle ranch, extends your education into the field. Here, students gain real-world experience managing a herd of more than 1,000 cattle, exploring the links between animal welfare, ecosystem health, and sustainable agriculture. At UCVM, we believe that veterinarians and animal health scientists are essential to solving today's most pressing challenges. So if you're ready to turn your passion for animals into purpose, to learn, lead, and make an impact, this is where it begins. Choose UCVM.
Okay. Good evening and welcome on behalf of the Faculty of Veterinary Medicine and our Dean, Dr. Renata Weller, who you can see pictured surrounded by all of our animal friends. My name is Robert McCorkle, and I am the Associate Dean of Admissions and Outreach, as I try to get this camera back up. There we go. Yes, there we go. And I'm the Associate Dean of Admissions and Community Engagement here at the Faculty of Veterinary Medicine, and I'm joined tonight by my colleague, James Wasmuth, who will introduce himself right now.
Hi, everyone. Good evening. I'm James Wasmuth. I'm the Associate Dean for Emerging Scholars, which gives me the privilege of overseeing our graduate program, so our MScs and PhD students, as well as those undergraduates and DVMs that do research during the summer months. And I'll be speaking about that a bit later. I'd like to take this opportunity to recognise that we live, work and play in the heart of southern Alberta, and that the University of Calgary both acknowledges and pays tribute to the traditional territories of the peoples of Treaty 7, which include the Blackfoot Confederacy, comprising the Siksika, Piikani and Kainai First Nations, the Tsuut'ina First Nation, and the Stoney Nakoda, including the Chiniki, Bears Paw, and Goodstoney First Nations. The City of Calgary is also home to the Métis Nation within Alberta, including Nose Hill Métis District 5 and Elbow Métis District 6. And I will pass back to Rob, and you'll hear more from me in a bit.
Thank you. So as you heard from Dr. Wasmuth there, that we have a variety of things that happen here at the Faculty of Veterinary Medicine. Our mission, as you can see, is to serve the veterinary and animal health science needs of Alberta. And we do this by educating people, bringing clinical and diagnostic expertise to our communities, leading in transdisciplinary research, and being a positive place to learn, work, and contribute. And specifically, I'm going to speak to you about the DVM program, which is the main undergraduate program that we offer here in the faculty. And the objective of our DVM program is to deliver a world-class program that will provide the foundations to build a successful career and deliver transformative impact to the communities that our graduates serve. The Doctor of Veterinary Medicine program is a 4-year professional degree. We are accredited by the AVMA, CVMA Council on Education. And what does that mean? That means that it allows our graduates or our students to write the North American Veterinary Licensure Exam, which is a key step to gaining licensure in a professional organization in Alberta. in Canada, and in fact in North America. And our program prepares students for general veterinary practice. So the question I always like to ask is, what do veterinarians do? What does this DVM program prepare you to be? And I think many of you out there who are obviously interested in this, in becoming a veterinarian, have some ideas and some vision. So I just quickly run through. These are the typical ones that people see. Veterinarians out on the farm. Here we have working with sheep or cattle, calves in the spring, working with cattle in chutes. And so this is a common experience, especially maybe it's a bit earlier, but this time of year, there'll be lots of cows running through the chutes right now as they've just come home from pasture. So these are the typical things that people think about. Here we have working on horses. And with horses, you do a lot of work with the extremities, so the foot. Dairy industry, very large. We spend time working on dairy cattle who are slightly different than our beef cattle friends, looking at milk yields and quality. We have lots of equine clients. And so here we are still talking about mainly working with individual animals and being a veterinarian, taking care of their needs. The other thing that people often overlook is that many of these veterinary practices are privately owned. So veterinarians are in fact small business people. They own a business, they employ themselves and many of their other colleagues and staff, and they have all the fun things of payroll and leases to negotiate. So it's another aspect of veterinary medicine, and that is being a business person. Again, back with our small animal clients. And we are increasingly seeing a wider spectrum of species. So we saw pictures there as we went through with sort of the common domestic species, but we see a lot increasingly wider variety of animals. And so these are all the kind of things that people normally associate with veterinary medicine. But our animals that we work with that you commonly think of are also existing in an environment. And you can see here the cattle on the range. And in that environment, there are all sorts of other animals, the wildlife, that we also concern ourselves with. We're also concerned with maintaining the health of that environment. So there's veterinarians involved with studying that and maintaining things like water quality. Also, wildlife are important aspects, and we have conservation medicine and other aspects of veterinary medicine that take us into in working with non-traditional species and with actual animals who are living out in the wild. So I just wanted to expand those horizons. As ours are being expanded all the time, you can see now that aquaculture is a very large part of the general of protein production for human consumption. And so we have lots of veterinarians now who are working with fish and even mollusks, because those are all part of the aquaculture community. And so that's expanded that range as well. I also like to mention that the movement of these animals and animal tissues across international borders requires a lot of veterinarians to be involved. They help write the laws, they help enforce them. And this is a picture of a meeting in Paris where the World Organization for Animal Health, where it's held annually for international agreements which have to be created. You have to understand the disease situations in other countries. So there's a role in that area for veterinarians, which people don't commonly think about. And then finally, we also have other perhaps more standard things like research, where we're looking at, it's surprising in this day and age, you'd think with the relationship that we've had with animals and how long veterinary medicine has been around, that you might think that we know everything that we need to know, but we quickly run into the extent of our knowledge. And so we have veterinarians who are involved with very basic fundamental research on various species or even antibody systems, right up to very applied research where we're looking at improving animal performance on the racetrack or helping animals grow better in our feeding operations. So there's lots of important work that we do in that environment. So what I was describing to you is the end product of our DVM program. When you get out there into the world after graduating, those are the opportunities and the types of jobs that await. So while you're in program, that's here at the veterinary faculty, the DVM program is, as we mentioned, a general veterinary education covering all of the major domestic species, and it's delivered over 4 calendar years, 9 semesters. At UCVM, the first 3 years are 2 semesters in length, and they kind of follow the university academic calendar quite faithfully. The 4th year of our program, they call it the practicum year. This is held off to a large degree off campus. Our students find themselves in practical rotations, as we call them, 2, 4, and 6 week rotations that take place throughout the province in our distributed veterinary learning community. And so they're out in all parts of Alberta working with cooperating veterinary practices and spend their time honing their skills in the 4th year of the program. They do spend some time here on campus, but I would say the majority of time is off campus in the 4th year of the program. And so when you're on campus experiencing our program, these are the facilities that we have here. So this is some of our newer classrooms that we've just been allowed to populate. And so we have typical classroom environments, very nice, large, brand new lab that we have that, again, for training all those laboratory-based skills. A nice, brand new student commons and we have lots of spaces here for social gatherings on campus and for spaces for students to gather and interact and to study and prepare as they go through the program. This is our updated small animal surgery suite. You can see we have lots of space in there. And so that's where we teach. This is the surgery suite. We also have a treatment space, so you learn to prepare and animals for surgery and then actually conduct surgery in the senior years. Our large animal facilities are present in the back of the clinical skills building. This is a breezeway that opens into the wards. The wards are the ones covered by those big wooden doors, and we have the large animal, bovine, and equine facilities there. In addition to that, as was mentioned in the video, we also have access to WA ranches, which is a large cow-calf operation that's just about 20 minutes northwest of our Spy Hill campus. And we now have upgraded that facility, so we have classroom space out there, so we can send a class out there for the whole day, and they can spend their day out there either in the classroom, doesn't matter what kind of weather. And we also have a covered facility with large animal handling facilities for our cattle, where people can get experience working with cattle and doing the procedures that we normally do with those on farm. So you can see that in the program, you have all these opportunities and facilities set up to assist you in your learning. And the big news, of course, is that we have expanded. This fall, we let in our first class of 100 students. They've been with us now for just about 3 months. And we will be letting in 100 students a year from here on in. And so we'll be growing the faculty from just over 200 to 400 undergraduate DVM students in the next couple of years. And there you go. That's what 100 students looks like. We're all just getting used to that. It's quite a large body of students. When UCVM began, our first class was 30 students. So this is more than 3 times what we used to take in. Recently, we were accepting about 50 students, so it's even double our most recent class. So it's everybody's adapting to the larger class. The students are as well, and to the nice new facilities we have in the program. And so how does one get access to the program? As I'm just talking about what you'd experience when you're in the program. The DVM program here at UCVM is open to Alberta residents, and so you have to be a resident of Alberta. That's not a big hurdle for somebody who's lived and grown up here in the province. It's also not a very large adjustment that people have to make if they're coming to Alberta. Alberta residency is established by living here for a year without being a full-time student. By the time you're admitted to the program, you must have completed 2 years of university level courses at the time of admission. So that means you can apply after your first year of university. And then while the application process proceeds, you complete that second year. And then if you're successful, you'll join us at the end of 2 years in the DVM program. While you're taking those 2 years of university, we have required courses. They are the typical required courses of any health sciences program. So we have the 2 introductory biology, 2 introductory chemistry courses in English, organic chemistry, statistics, biochemistry, genetics. The only course that we require that's slightly different than anybody else is that we do require an introductory ecology course. And so that in some cases, people are unaware of that, so we want to highlight that so you're aware that that's a requirement. All of the applicants have to have that ecology course to fulfill our requirements before they'll be admitted. Otherwise, the others are pretty standard for any of the health sciences program. If you're looking at dentistry, medicine, these are the same types of courses that you would take. And then a quick summary of the process. That QR code on the screen, if you were to use that, it will take you to our admissions page and give you more detailed information about the process of admissions. But basically, we have those 10 course requirements, and then we have some academic requirements. So we require that applicants have a minimum GPA of 3.0 on their 4 most recent full-time terms of undergraduate education. What does all that mean? A term is equal to a semester. So, and a full semester is 4 first attempt courses. So if you're taking those 4 first attempt courses and you completed 4 semesters worth, that's the calculation. We need a 3.0 across those courses. We require at least a passing grade on the 10 required courses. There's not a separate requirement for GPA on the 10 required. In addition, we require you to take the medical college admissions test, the MCAT, and we require a score of greater than or equal to 495 on that exam within 3 years of the application being submitted. And so those are the basic academic requirements. And once those requirements are met, we no longer use those academic measurements in our ranking process. The next step in our process is the file review. We ask all kinds of questions of our applicants. You'll get an opportunity to provide information about your hobbies, your volunteerism, your work experience, the community you grew up in, 5 important life experiences that you want to share. We're looking to find out more about the individual who is applying, and those files are reviewed by 3 faculty members who are looking for the applicant's goodness of fit for the UCVM DVM program, and we'll rank our applicants based on that information. We get more applications than we can interview, and so we use this file review process to invite people to the interview level of the application process. So once the file review is completed, we will have the list of applicants who are being invited for the interview piece. And by interview, that's kind of a general term for the next several steps in the process. UCVM uses something called the multi-mini interview. It's basically a series of stations. Typically, we have 7 stations. Each station has a scenario. The applicant is faced with the scenario. They get a couple of minutes to think about their response to that scenario, and then they are joined by 2 raters who are going to evaluate their response, and then they provide their response to that scenario. They have roughly 10 minutes for all of this to happen. And then you move on to the next scenario. That happens 7 times. These are the 2 people joining listening to the response will score that response. So that is the way we derive the score from the multi-mini interview. And that score provides 65% of the final ranking score that we will use for selection. In addition to the multi-mini interview process, everybody invited to the interviews will also be sitting an on-site essay. And we say on-site Basically, that means an invigilated essay. We will set up the essay and exam centers all over the place, close to where our applicants are located. So we have applicants from all parts of the world on occasion. And so we will contact an exam center there, and then you can write the essay close to where you're taking your university training. And I should mention on the multi-mini interviews, we do the interviews in a virtual space for the same reason. So we don't require everybody to come to Calgary. We connect with you online like we are tonight. And we have the interview in this environment, and the essays are held at an exam center. So the essay and the interview process together are 95% of the final ranking score. The final 5% is formed by the Casper test. This is an online situational judgment test that is provided to us by a separate company called Casper, and they provide a video scenario, which is similar to the MMIs that we were talking about. Instead of a written scenario, this is a video scenario, and the applicant responds in text to the scenario, and that's reviewed by, they tell me, 16 different reviewers that provides a score. So with those three different, and I should say Casper is used by many institutions. Some institutions, that's the only form of interview they use. So we have it as a minor part of our process, but it is part of our process. So with those three things together, that's 100% of the final ranking score. We add up that score and start at the top of the list and invite the first 100 down that list. And that's how the selection process is conducted. And so with that, I will pass the baton over to James, and he'll tell you about the other parts of the programs we offer here at UCVM.
Thank you, Rob. Let me just share my screen and hopefully you can see my slides. Rob, can you confirm that you can see my slides?
Yeah.
Yeah, excellent. Okay, thank you, Rob. And thank you for giving such a great overview of the DVM program as well as of UCVM. So I realize that most people watching this live or watching the recording are here because they want to enter the DVM program and that they want to be vets. And that's great, but I would like to also let you know and reassure you that you can make major contributions to animal health and welfare without a DVM. For example, I don't have a DVM and I get to work on really cool things like these parasitic worms. So this is Ascaris that you will find in a large number of animals, including humans, and you can make those contributions through research as well as obtaining a graduate degree. So research at UCVM is incredibly transdisciplinary and multidisciplinary. We study everything, or there are labs here studying everything from individual biomolecules to entire biospheres. Research topics include biomedical, clinical, studying population health, understanding and informing policy. Currently, we have 63 professors that have active research programs, and they bring in approximately $15 million each year in research funding through Tri-Council grants, through provincial funding and international grants. And the pictures here, and you'll see them throughout my slides, really show the diversity of the research. Again, we have everyone who's in the lab doing traditional pipetting, to those studying horses at the Stampede, to being out in the Arctic. So we have a number of research groups. So we're organized as multi-lab research groups here at UCVM, and I'm just going to go through each of these briefly. Cattle health supports animal well-being and sustainable production of safe meat and milk. The infection biology research group focuses on the molecular and immunological aspects of infectious diseases. The One Health research group uses multidisciplinary approaches to address issues that involve the interactions between animals, humans, and their environment. The Veterinary Clinical and Applied Research Group advance animal health and welfare through clinical and applied research. Veterinary education collaborate globally across specialties to guide best practices in veterinary education, wildlife health and ecology, focus on wildlife population health using ecological approaches. And last but not least is the reproductive and regenerative medicine group that brings together experts from veterinary and human medicine, stem cell biology, reproductive medicine, and bioengineering. And among a relatively modest group of researchers, just 63 of us, that diversity is huge. So, for example, this afternoon, I was at a series of seminars from 3 UCVM researchers, and I heard about how people are growing tissues in bioreactors. I heard how we're helping farmers in both Canada and Kenya improve their practices to benefit animal health and welfare, as well as production. And I heard how we're able to transplant animal ovaries, which help conservation efforts for mammals in danger of extinction. So it really does demonstrate that broad research. So we have 63 amazing researchers. I just want to highlight 4 of them because they hold Canada research chairs. They're really among the most prestigious research positions that you can have in the country. With Susan Coutts, who's a professor looking at healthy animals and communities in a changing Arctic. Holly Sparks studies equine regenerative medicine. Diego Nobrega studies antimicrobial resistance using One Health techniques. And then Jack Chu studies the reprogramming of the cell with regards to regenerative medicine. And then coming soon, we hope to announce 2 new Canada research chairs, one in the microbiomes of livestock, so the microbiome of the bacteria that live inside us and interact with our own physiology, and a Canada research chair in emerging viruses and vaccines. Rob's already done a great job talking about the facilities that we have at UCVM. This is where most of the research takes place. So I'll just mention the Foothills campus. So many people will think that we're exclusively up at the Spy Hill campus. Many of the UCVM researchers are actually strategically located at Foothills, where we collaborate close with colleagues from the Cummings School of Medicine. It's this sharing of cutting edge technology and knowledge that's helping us improve animal health and welfare. Rob's already mentioned our Spy Hill campus and the new building, which is just fantastic. And we have research space up there for a number of our graduate students, especially those doing more clinical based work. The same goes for WA ranches, and we're definitely expanding our research footprint there. There's also the Veterinary Sciences Research Station. That's located up by Spy Hill and is a fully equipped animal housing and research facility specifically around large animals, and is able to support surgery, imaging, and disease diagnosis. So that's about the research that's being done. I just want to give an overview about the graduate education at UCVM, and I really want to stress that here it is an international affair. So UCVM offers thesis-based MSc and PhD degrees. So that's where you do research for a number of years, an MSc typically around 2 years, a PhD between 4 and 5 years. You dive deep into your research, into your studies, and then you write a thesis at the end. That's then defended in front of a panel of experts, and you come out either with your MSc or with your PhD and get to be called a doctor. We also have a Leaders in Veterinary Medicine program where students can take a combined DVM and MSc degree. At the moment, the way that this works is that you get accepted into the DVM program, you spend a year in the DVM program, and then you apply to do an MSc, and it's combined and weaved throughout your DVM. I'm proud to say that we have 130 graduate students and 50 postdoc fellows. These are the people really doing the research in the labs and driving it forward. And again, I'm proud that so many of them do come from around the world. As you can imagine, probably the largest, well, definitely the largest contingent of students are from Canada, but we have students coming from 27 different countries. I just want to highlight 3 graduate students that we have and demonstrate how they are drivers of the research. Sorry for anyone who's eating their dinner, but This is McCabe Wooten, so he is in the white overalls. He's a PhD student studying with Susan Coutts, and he's studying viral and bacterial diseases of muskox in the Arctic to understand the cause of recent mass die-offs. So here you'll see him performing a post-mortem of a predated muskox, and he's trying to understand what the cause of death was. Next is Osin Garcia in Mathieu Purvot's lab, and she's studying the interactions between invasive wild boars and domesticated pigs. Osin is specifically looking at whether porcine circovirus is transmitted between the wild boar and the farmed pigs. This is important because an outbreak of circovirus among farmed pigs can cost the industry hundreds of millions of dollars in lost revenue and production. And then finally, something completely different. Here is Pranav Ramesh, who's in Jack Chu's lab, and he's studying early vertebrate development. So specifically, he's building tissues in the lab. These tissues are called organoids, and he's looking at how the animal spine develops and how this development can go wrong. So what you can see here in this picture is how the spine forms, and in the green color at the bottom of this, that's as the spine continues to form and grows. So that's just 3 examples of our 120 students that are really driving advances in animal health and coming up and generating new knowledge and new understanding. So how do you enter UCVM to study for a graduate degree? So you need to hold or expect to hold a bachelor's degree or the equivalent. GPA on a 4.0 scale needs to be 3.0 or greater. You need to demonstrate English language proficiency. So if you were educated at a university where English is the language of instruction, that's absolutely fine. If not, then you need to take one of the approved exams. All this information is on our website, which is the top QR code. And then the other thing you need to do is actually identify a professor who's willing to supervise you for your research. So to do this, you need to go through our web pages, have a look at all the amazing research that's being done here at UCVM, email them, then email them again, and then email them a 3rd time, hope they get back to you, and really sell yourself and say how passionate you are to carry out this research. And then you have that conversation with the professor, and then you make your application. And then with that, I'm going to pass it back to Rob. Thank you.
Thanks, James. And so that kind of concludes the prepared part of our presentation. We're happy now to open up the meeting to questions. I have some colleagues here working in the background who are monitoring the chat, and so they may have already been responding to some questions. I don't know, but so you can if you have questions about anything you've just heard, or about the program, or maybe something that we didn't mention that we should have, please fire away with the questions, put them in the chat, or I'm not sure on this environment if you can actually key a microphone, but maybe you can't, and so the chat's our only method of communication. But we're here happy to answer questions. So as you can see, we have a broad spectrum of educational possibilities. So I imagine there might be people at different stages in the audience. And so that would mean that you're in high school, contemplating coming to university, contemplating to do maybe a DVM program. We're happy to answer questions about that pathway. Or if you're already at university, how do you move through to a graduate program that James just finished talking about? Happy to provide answers to some, if you have some more detailed questions on that as well. Or if you're just curious about the profession, happy to provide some answers to those kind of questions as well. I'm talking here the DVM profession. The other, as you graduate out of graduate school with a PhD, you're also a doctor, and there are multiple professions open there. So that one, many of those are academic in focus. So you end up at institutions like this, so we can answer questions about those kind of possibilities as well.
2 questions.
We have 2 questions. Once a student finishes formula can practice without supervision. Yes. So let me, we're looking here at the faculty, we have the 4 years. So we're talking about DVM program. You can complete the DVM program, and in the final year of the DVM program, there'll be an opportunity for you to write that NAVLE exam that I was talking about. And so with successful completion of the DVM and passing the NAVLE exam, you have the credentials that you need to present to Veterinary Medical Association for licensure. And they'll have another little quiz, because every Veterinary Medical Association has rules that pertain to their jurisdiction. So there'll be, if you're licensing in Alberta, you'd have to write their little quiz for Alberta. If you were going somewhere else, there'd be a quiz for that. So once all those hurdles are jumped, then you get a license to practice. Once you have a license to practice veterinary medicine, yes, you can practice unsupervised. Most graduates would find that uncomfortable. So typically what you do is work for a year or 2 in another practice under the supervision then of other veterinarians who are already in practice to help you get some experience and some confidence as you move forward in practice. But yes, that's the process. So just finishing our degree alone does not allow you to set up a practice. You have to get those regulatory pieces covered off, and that's the NAVLE and the licensure exam of whichever veterinary medical association you subscribe to. What was the second question?
Average GPA. What was the average GPA of this last year's enrollment?
I don't even know. That's how important that is. So as I said, we do the calculation. This used to be important, and a question like that made sense, say 5 years ago, because we used to use the GPA was a ranking tool for us to figure out who we were going to invite for an interview. And so there was, we at that time said that you needed a GPA of 3.0 or greater, but in fact, to get an interview, you needed a GPA much higher than that. And I think the last time we did that, it was a 3.7. Now we're asking you to have a GPA of 3.0, and it's a threshold. So it doesn't matter to us how much above that your GPA is. It just needs to be above it on those on your last 4 consecutive terms of undergraduate and study. And so with that information, then the 3 steps that I described, we qualify the applicant academically, and that's based on that GPA 3.0, the 10 required courses having passing grades, and an MCAT score of 495. Once all those things are met, then we feel that you're now academically qualified, and then we look at your file. We look at you. What do you bring to this application? Does it make sense that somebody with this experience and this work and this interest should get a seat in a veterinary medical program? These are competitive seats, and so it's we want to make sure that those that are well aligned have that opportunity. And then you go through the interview process. So you have to be successful at that before you'll be given an invite. So that the statistic you asked for, the average GPA of the last class, as I said, does not have the same relevance it did several years ago. And I actually haven't calculated it for a couple of years because of that.
Leads to a good question. What are the key qualities you're looking for when evaluating applicants?
Okay, so what I tell the applicants, because this question often relates to the file review portion of our selection process. And what you want to do when you review the information that you provide, so as I said, we ask for a wide range of information. And so we're trying to get a very holistic view of the applicants. So we understand who they are and what they're bringing to their application. And so if you're evaluating your application, it's like evaluating your own CV. It's really a narrative. It's a story that it's telling. And is that story consistent? does it provide a compelling case that you should find your way into veterinary medicine? That's the kind of thing you're looking for. We're not looking for endless hours of cleaning cages in a small animal practice, for example. Having experience in veterinary practices is a good thing, because that's one of the pathways that you may enter into after graduation. So you should know, we feel it's a good thing that you have an understanding of what future jobs look like and what you might end up doing with this degree. So having that information is positive, and having that evidence of that in your application is helpful. And so that's what you're trying to do, and then that's what we're looking for. We're looking for people who will line up well on the program that we offer. And the program we offer on the common domestic species, we have a strong focus on rural placements as well. As you're going through, everybody has to do, I think it's at least 6 weeks of their fourth year program in a rural practice. So these are the kind of elements that help strengthen your application.
Okay. The next question is about Indigenous status. Do we accept Indigenous
sorry, yeah,
students?
I should have. There's two things I should have. Well, I was giving a very quick summary, so now we're getting to more details. There are. I mentioned at the beginning that you needed to be an Alberta resident to qualify for our program. There's one exception to that, and that is for Indigenous students. We accept Indigenous students from anywhere in Canada. So that's the only exception. Otherwise, you need to be an Alberta resident. And as I say that about the requirements for applying, we recognize that people come to us from various backgrounds and circumstances, and so there is a possibility or an opportunity in our application process for you to describe a circumstance or situation that's preventing you from meeting our requirements, right? And so, for example, a few years ago, we had an Olympic athlete. They could not take 4 courses in a semester. They could only manage 3 while they did all of the other intensive work they had to do to be competitive in the Olympics. Well, so that exception was granted, and so that individual could apply without having those 4 consecutive full terms that we required. And so there are other scenarios like that may lead you to wishing to apply, but not strictly meeting our requirements. There's an opportunity for you to describe that situation, provide supporting documents and those kind of things in your application. The admissions committee, will review every one of those requests, and each one of them is handled on an individual case basis as to whether an exception might be granted or not. But I should mention that there is that possibility for some folks that for whom that's important.
We have a question. What is the best way to prepare for the multi-mini interviews? Is there courses or any outside sources to help prepare?
Yeah, so the best way to prepare is to practice. There are lots of online. This is a common form of interview. When we started using it 17 years ago, we were one of the early adopters, but now very many institutions use this as their interview process. And so you'll find, if you go search on the internet, you'll find lots of information about this style of interview. If you are at university, there are pre-veterinary clubs. Certainly we know they exist at the University of Calgary and at the University of Alberta. Other places have smaller groups. They may not be a full-fledged club, but there'll be a people of like mind gathered together. And the U of A and the U of C both organize mock MMIs. So they go through and create very faithful renditions of what we do. And so that allows applicants to practice. And typically you should do that. These are professional interviews. They're high stakes. There'll be lots of pressure and difficult scenarios. And so the last thing you want to be confronted with is the format and that type of thing. So practicing allows you to get past that and then focus on what it is you're trying to do during the scenario. So, I mean, what I typically say is, how good are we the first time we do anything? The first time you strapped on skates and stepped on the ice, you probably spent a lot of time sitting on the ice and not skating. So If you're going to go do a multi-mini interview, I think what you want to do is try and learn about it, go and find opportunities to practice it. And that way, when you have to sit it for real, you can focus on the important parts and deliver good responses to the scenarios that are provided. The other thing I'll say is that we set up our scenarios in a veterinary context. And so paying attention to the world around you is important. There are all sorts of issues happening that have to do with veterinary medicine. Some of them are headline grabbers, like the recent situation with highly pathogenic avian influenza that we heard all about, the ostrich farm in British Columbia. Other ones are more subtle, but if you're looking to be in veterinary medicine, there's things to keep your eyes open on. For example, a little over a year ago, the rules were changed on the sale of pharmaceuticals. And if you understand how veterinary medicine is managed in private business, that was significant. And so paying attention to these things is important. So that way, if there's a scenario that's based on something, you'll know what the scenario is about and can provide a sort of well-reasoned response. So that's another thing, is to pay attention to veterinary medicine, to what's going on in this area of the world, and being prepared to respond to that. James mentioned a few situations on the research side that are fairly timely, because I can tell you that if you pay attention to little details like that, you'll find out there are diseases in other parts of the world that are creating headlines over there that we're worried about over here, but the general public here probably doesn't know anything about them. But if you're a veterinarian, you pay attention, your antenna are up, there's something going on that we're worried about. And I can draw your attention to one right now, that there's depopulations going on in Greece having to do with their sheep and goats. And you might wonder, well, what's that about? And I did. And that's why you go look and find out. And so those are the kind of things I think that if you're interested in pursuing a career in veterinary medicine, those are the things that should attract your attention, you should be aware of.
So I'm going to let James answer this one, and then you. Are people with a degree favored as opposed to people who do not have a degree in the application process? James, I believe you require a degree?
Yes, to come and do an MSc or a PhD, you do need to have a bachelor's degree or equivalent. Actually, on our website, it does say a 4-year bachelor's. That's not completely the case. If you have a 3-year bachelor's from a country like my own homeland that only offers 3-year bachelor's degrees, then that is also sufficient. I'll let Rob talk about the DVM.
Right. So having a degree is not required to apply to the DVM program. You can apply after completing your first year of university. The application process will proceed while you're in second year. We have students every year who are successful applying at that stage of their education. It's not common. They're the minority, but if you're in a hurry, you can do it. Many people enter in a degree program and then they choose to finish it before they apply. That's a personal decision. Whether you apply and leave your degree early without completing it is something you have to sit down and think about. I can tell you that some institutions like the University of Alberta there is a possibility of you leaving their program, some of their bachelor programs early, so you leave without a degree. But if you have just a few credits remaining, they will grant you, those credits can be granted back to your degree while you're in the DVM program. So when you finish the DVM program, you will also be able to get your bachelor's degree from the U of A. And so that you need to look at the real fine print and details there, because there's certain courses that this applies to. But that means that even though you entered the program before completing your degree, you might still be able to complete that degree while you're in our DVM program. But this is a very personal decision that each applicant has to sit down and decide for themselves. But we do not require that, and it does not confer any advantage to your application if you have a degree, other than you're older, you're probably more worldly, and you might interview more strongly. But that's the only sort of peripheral benefit.
Sorry, if I can just jump in, Rob. Just thinking about it, if you don't have a bachelor's degree, it would prevent you doing the Leaders in Veterinary Medicine program because you do require, because there is two separate degrees and you do require a bachelor's to do that master's.
Gosh, yeah. That passed through my mind as whether or not that worked.
Is there anything I can do during high school to increase my chance in getting into the DVM program?
So, yeah, well, it's very important that you have a strong basis in the sciences and maths. So doing well in your courses in high school will set you up to be able to be successful at university. So that's the first step. Now, remember, part of our application process includes your volunteerism, your hobbies, your work experience. You're constructing a narrative as to your commitment and desire to be a veterinarian. And that goes back into that age bracket, that people have summer jobs, people have hobbies, they have other things that help them create their relationship with animals and with veterinary medicine. And so, yeah, you can think about doing that at high school and help create that story, that narrative that I was talking about that will be helpful when you apply.
So when is the earliest you can apply after your first or second year? Maybe just clarification.
So you will finish your first year of university and you will have to write the MCAT that summer, and you will submit your application in the fall as you begin your second year of university. That's as quick as you can do it. And then our application window just closed on last Friday. And then we go through that process of screening the applicants while you're completing your second year. So you will have completed your second year of university in April, and we will have made our decision at the end of April, and we'll be inviting people to the class in May, and that class would start in the following September. So that's the most expeditious route. 1 year right after you've completed your first year of university, you could start that process of applying.
If I've been living on a farm my entire life, will that help increase my chances of getting accepted into the DVM program?
Well, it won't hurt them, that's for sure. You will have a narrative that will be fairly strong especially if the farm is raising animals. So you'll have had a long history of being with animals, knowing about them, understanding whatever industry you're involved in, be that dairy or beef or pork, whatever your farm was producing. From an animal point of view, you may have had many pets. Many people on the farm have dogs, and often cats, ride horses. So you can see right away that helps you formulate a fairly good application. You have all these relationships, you have good understanding of how veterinary medicine interfaces with all those different species. So that would make a very competitive application for sure.
What are the 4 years like? So sort of first year, you mentioned the fourth year is out in the community. What does sort of first year, second year, and third year look like once you're in the DVM program?
Right. So they're very similar to a typical university calendar. What's different is the workload. So as I said, when you apply to the program, we require that you take a full term, which we defined as 4 university classes, which would be, the typical. Often some would take 5, so you could take 5 courses in a semester, but we require you to take at least 4. In our program, you'll find that there's more going on, more than 5 per semester, at least as course volume goes. So that's the big difference. But other than that, the course classes begin in the end of August. We're coming up to our exam windows here in a week or so for the first semester. The second semester will begin early January. The exams will be in April. And then between first year and second year, there's the summer is yours to do what you will. So you can get a summer job, Often people get summer jobs related to veterinary medicine. We have many job openings here in the faculty, and we have many of our students with us over the summer working in labs with our research colleagues or other functions that we have here. Then you would start in the second semester again at the end of August and run through a very similar series of courses in second year, and then have exams before Christmas, the same for a winter semester. And then you'd have another break between second and third year, which again, you would have the option of managing your own time, jobs, and other experiences. Then you would enter third year. Now, when you enter third year, there will be no break until you graduate, or no significant break until you graduate. There'll be small holiday windows here of 2 or 3 weeks duration, but third year becomes more applied. So the first 2 years tend to be more knowledge-based learning, and then the third year you start to do more of the applied skills, and so you actually start doing surgeries and doing more animal-based studies. But the program of study is very similar, as I described, runs from August till December and January until April for third year. The difference is fourth year begins in May. So the summer after third year, you're actually in the fourth year of the program, and that's when those rotations start. And there are 40 weeks of rotations, 2 weeks for assessments, so that's 42 weeks, and there's 52 weeks in the year. So there's 10 weeks which we don't have scheduled that end up providing breaks here and there for that last year of the program. But there's not that big May, June, July, most of August break that you had between first and second and third year.
Is the CASPER exam ranked differently by the university than the actual acuity team?
Ranked different by the university than, yeah, I guess I'm not exactly sure of the question. The University of Calgary doesn't really have a role in what we're doing here. The selection process is managed by the Faculty of Veterinary Medicine. And so we use that score as I mentioned, as a 5% of the final score that we use to rank the applicants that we've interviewed. And that's how we use it here. I'm not sure about how other people are using it. I'm also not sure about how other institutions use it. I'm just aware that they do, and some use it exclusively. That's their only interview tool, and that's their only score that they have. But they have probably other metrics that they use to rank their applicants.
Do you have applicants that have applied multiple times, or how often do students get in on their first time?
Okay, so yes, I'll phrase it this way. Of the applicants that are successful, a minority of them are on their first application. Something approaching 40% have applied once. So that tells you the rest have applied more than once. And so it's not unusual to apply 2 and even 3 times. Every year, it's a different pool of applicants. So the competition is different. And people have done more things or have other experiences that they can add to their application after next year or two, when they become aware of maybe where they were needing a little strengthening in their application. So it's not unusual for people to apply more than once. But as I said, fairly high number of people get in after their first application.
What is the process for if one of the 10 required courses doesn't necessarily appear on your transfer list? How does that get dealt with? So
we have the 10 required courses. We use the University of Calgary examples as the courses that we require. And then after that, if you're coming from somewhere else, we have to have an equivalent. We publish a list of equivalents that we've already judged. There's also a facility called Transfer Alberta, which can provide that information online. You can look up and see if what courses align in Alberta. The problem for us comes outside of the province and especially outside of the country. If you're coming to us from an international, I should say outside of North America, because obviously we have a little bit better understanding of what's going on in the United States. But if you're coming from somewhere else, then we use an outside service called, the initials are WES. It costs the applicant a little bit of money because they have to put the courses they've taken and put them into the WES's system, and they will provide us an assessment of whether or not they're equivalent. And that's the only way we get applications from Europe, and we've had them from South America, we've had them from South Africa. In fact, I'm just trying to think of the weirdest and wildest example, but basically Alberta residents are free to pursue their post-secondary education wherever they like, and people do, and that's fine. Our problem is making sure that our required courses are covered. So if you present a course for which we do not have any record of and any record of comparison, then the admissions committee will review that course after the application has been submitted. And so that's actually the work that we are entertaining right now. We're going through the applications we have just received and looking for courses in there that applicants have offered as equivalent. And if we haven't seen those courses before, then we have to do some homework and find out if that course does meet our requirements. And then we will get back to the applicant and tell them that we agree that the course meets our requirements and the application can move forward, or we don't agree, in which case there's still the winter semester, and an applicant could enroll in the winter semester and pick up the course that they need if we don't feel that it's present or our requirements have been met. But that's a committee work. It's, again, handled on each course individually, and that's why we wait until the application has been submitted. Verifying courses and their equivalents takes a bunch of work, and so we can't really do it as a service before the application. We just don't have the capacity for that.
Leads into a good question. Is there a preference for students coming from a particular undergrad program or university?
No, there's no, the program of studies that you're in prior to applying is not influential directly, let's put it that way. It's not something we look at or evaluate or provides any impact on scores. Clearly, the experience that you get in certain programs might set you up better than others. But you can cover that off with your own time and finding those experiences on your own to enhance your application. So it doesn't matter the program that you enroll in. And so here's a little guidance I'll provide you. One of the most common things I've had to do all the years that I've been chair of the admissions is tell people no. And so if you're entering into a program of studies, have a look at it. What's the future of that degree? Is there a job at the end of that degree that you want to do? Because you may end up finding that's the path you have to travel. So I'd rather that you looked at that initially, found a program that makes sense to you, pursue that one, and while you're doing that, you can apply to our program. And so that makes more sense to me rather than worrying about one or the other. It's more you. So you're going to put in 4 years and graduate with that degree. Hopefully it's useful to you should you be unsuccessful in competing for a place in our DVM program.
I'm going to bounce back to this other one, but this will be for James as well as Rob. So having earned a DVM degree outside of Canada, what are the chances of getting into graduate programs as an international candidate?
So I'll take that. Relatively high. It depends on your transcripts and finding a supervisor here at UCVM. I saw the question in there and I was desperately trying to find the number, but approximately 70% of our graduate students, MSc and PhD students, are international. So they earned their first degree outside of Canada. Of those, I would say about 30% hold a DVM, maybe higher. and come and do a master's or a PhD here at UCVM. So we have a lot of international DVMs coming and contributing to our research programs. If there's a follow-up question, I'm happy to field that as well, but I can give Rob an opportunity to speak.
So the question to me, you already have a DVM degree, but it's not, so there's some particulars. If the degree is from an accredited college or university, then you can probably gain licensure in this province directly. So you don't really need to trouble us. You can go ahead and face those exams and then go on and pursue it. Many people come to Canada with veterinary degrees that are from non-accredited institutions. And so that presents a more challenging situation. We do not, at this point, have a program up and running to accommodate those individuals. We are working on that. I can tell you that we're hopeful that we have something to put in place in the near future. I don't want to put a date and a time on it because it's not in my control. And other than that, we've put together the proposal. And if that were to be successful, what it would entail would be that you could get it'd be a 1 year or an 18-month program that you could enroll in, and then that would provide you with the training that you need then to qualify to write the NAVLE. And then if you're successful at passing the NAVLE, you would have the criteria necessary to go to the VMAs to get licensed. And so that doesn't exist yet. We very much want to have that opportunity, and we're working on it. And as I said, I don't have any new updates as to when that might be available, but it's in the works.
I just want to jump in, Rob, and comment about immigration and visas. So many people will have noticed or caught this recently that Canada is dramatically reducing the number of student visas that will be awarded. As of today, thesis-based graduate education is exempt from this cut in visas, and they are looking to improve the processing time on these visas. So if you're interested in doing a thesis-based, so that's a research-based master's or a PhD, then you are exempt from these cuts in visa numbers. But again, I recommend if you're interested in actually doing a research degree, look at our website. Those QR codes will take you there. Find a interested supervisor and then apply to our program, and you'll join a great community of international DVMs.
Question about fourth year. During the clinical rotations, is there any choice in which clinics you can go to, or do family circumstances, are they given any priority? How does that work?
So the fourth year rotations, there are some elective opportunities. Some of the elective opportunities start to show up in third year, and then they're more enhanced and available in fourth year. Now, generally those rotations are also a bit competitive, and so the way we solve that is by a lottery. And so you and your classmates, there might be a very popular rotation. For example, we offer a northern rotation where students go into the territories for 4 weeks in February. Hard to imagine that that's highly desirable and competitive, but it is. Our students want to go up there and participate in those communities. So we can only take 4 students. Many more are interested. So there's basically a lottery. All interested students' names go into the hat, and 4 are chosen. And so that's the same for all rotations for which there's a lot of interest. Lesser interest, more likely to get what you want, but you do have the ability to select rotations in your fourth year. There are some required rotations, which everybody does, but there's quite a bit of opportunity to select your own path. What's allowed? An undomesticated animal and returning it back to its wild state. So, yeah, that's That's not something that we spend a lot of time at in veterinary medicine. We do work with wild animals, and we do have to, and there are increasingly numbers of veterinarians who are finding a career in that space. But actually training animals, conditioning animals, these are skills that we generally learn in our to help us practice our profession. It's much easier to work animals and work with animals if you have an idea of how they're going to behave or how you can control their behavior. But we're not the ones that are doing the training generally in general terms. But it's a skill we do learn, and many of us, especially if you're working with wild animals, you have to learn how to communicate with them. Otherwise, difficult situations can quickly develop.
James, do you have any comments for that?
I guess from a scientific perspective, as an evolutionary biologist, I would start talking all about genetics and evolutionary time. So I don't think we have time right now to do that, but yeah.
Well,
Okay, well, we've reached the end of our questions, have we?
Nothing else?
That's good. Yeah, happy. And so just as we, if this is the case and everybody's had all of their questions answered, if you should have further questions, you can use those QR codes that we provide, which will take you to our website. There's contact information there. You can get a hold of the admissions office. We'll be happy to answer questions that come through that window. Also, looking at that window, you can keep track of us because we are going to be around the province. We have multiple events organized, and we're trying hard to get to all the different corners of Alberta. So we might be coming to a community near you, and you can come and see us and ask us questions there. We are also often at public fairs like Aggie Days and the Stampede and those kind. We'll have a booth, so it's another opportunity for you to come and find out more about what we do. And so I just wanted to make sure that our website is a good place to go to find the contact information, often the answer to some of your questions, and to figure out what we're up to. So if you want to come visit us, we'll be happy to answer them in person. James, do you have anything similar that you can offer for graduate students?
I am looking forward to joining you, Rob, and your team on these trips, and I hope people come and say hi, and we'll happy to talk research and graduate education as well. So thank you everyone for taking this time to attend and ask such great questions.
In fact, we've hit the end of our, we've exhausted everybody and their questions. That's good. I don't know, I have no statistics in front of me as to know how many people are online still with us or what we want to do, but I guess we're happy to end the session now if everybody's satisfied at this time. I hope maybe we'll see you in person at some point in the next 12 months.